Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back here for something. I'm so excited for this podcast because I have wanted to do this for a couple of weeks now because I have been a longtime listener to the Bill Simmons podcast across its many different iterations. And I am here to reheat some nachos today because Bill Simmons recently on a podcast episode brought back the Listener Mailbag, which used to be a staple of his column for many, many years on ESPN and Grantland, maybe The Ringer too. And he had great questions from the listeners, and they were sometimes serious and then sometimes absurd. And I feel like in the history of Rob as a podcast, we used to do this from time to time, and it was something that I too got away from for no good reason, where I have other vehicles in which I take questions from the listeners, such as the Patron 5 for 5 that I do with the First Lady of Podcasting. But a lot of times, if we talk about anything that's not related to her, maybe she's a little uninterested and I don't get to talk about the things that are about Rob as a podcast as much. So I said, hey, Brandon Donlon, let's do some listener tree mail. Open up the mailbag, and here we are, Brandon Donlon.
We're here. We did it.
We
asked on your Instagram. We asked on the Rob as a Podcast Instagram. We asked on Discord. We asked on Twitter. And we've got so many
We got
questions.
a great response. So we're going to do this again, assuming that this is not a total disaster. And so I feel like maybe like once a month might be a good cadence to do the Open Up the Listener Mailbag podcast. So I'm really excited for this one. I love to get the feedback from the listeners. I also take questions from the listeners also when I do the patron Q&A, but that's a little bit of a call-in show. We can't necessarily, I have less control over what questions we get to answer. So I thought this would be a fun podcast to do. And so thank you, Brandon, for helping me facilitate this on a day when we were supposed to talk to Dawn Meehan, was originally what we had scheduled. And Dawn had something come up. We were not able to record with Dawn. We will work on a Dawn interview sometime in the near future. But I said, hey, let's pivot and let's do some listener questions. So very excited to get into everything here today. First, let me just mention also, though, for many of the listeners, you know that I have been working on a book project. It's called The Tribe and I Have Spoken, and it is going to be available everywhere on May 5th, but is available for pre-orders now. But this holiday season, if you want to give the gift of The Tribe and I Have Spoken, I got something for you. And it's the link to robhasabook.com, where this holiday season, if you order, I didn't know we had that ready to go. If you order The Tribe and I Have Spoken over at robhasabook.com, we will send you a postcard that you can present to your loved one to show them, like, hey, I gave you the gift of The Tribe and I Have Spoken, and it is coming to you live on May 5th, 2026. So that is, if you're looking for some gift ideas, give the gift of the incredible book, The Tribe and I Have Spoken. All right. So there you go. All right, Brandon. So I gave you the controls.
Yeah.
Fire away. What did I will say one thing though. The part of the fun of doing this for me was like, okay, well, let's talk about whatever, but also this will be like a good vehicle to answer questions about Survivor 49. And I would say we got a absurdly, shockingly few questions about Survivor 49. I figured, okay, like maybe we'll talk some strategy, we'll break some stuff down. And that was like not like I would bring them to you. We got triple digit questions in just a few hours. And I think that maybe one or two were about Survivor 49.
Yeah, I just control F'd in the document to find, and I just typed in 49, 0 with the numbers 49 in it. Maybe there are some scattered around with people.
Do you have a question for me about Survivor 49?
I have no questions. There's a couple really good questions about folks who are playing Survivor 49 for you
Okay.
here. I don't know if I have a question about the game.
Well, Gail, let's start with the
mechanics.
Survivor 49 question. Just to keep it fresh, of course, Wednesday night, Thanksgiving Eve, Steven and I will be back together to recap episode 10 of Survivor 49. But I'm up for talking about Survivor. And we do Survivor 49 questions on the Patreon Q&A, but
let's do it. We have
no burning questions from the listeners, seemingly.
This is from, and forgive me, these are all Instagram usernames. So if I pronounce incorrectly, forgive me. Rudo HK says, what do you think? Rudo, RUDOHK.
Yeah.
Put it in your bio, Rudo. What do you think of Fair Play calling Riz God the new era Rob C?
Yeah. So I happen to listen to the Johnny Fairplay does do a podcast. This is not a paid advertisement. And I was going through, I love to listen to podcasts, and, I have only like so many subjects of podcasts. Like, frankly, I could use some more podcast recommendations, but besides like what we put out and stuff about the Jets, there's only a few other interests that I have for podcasts. And I saw Johnny Fairplay that he had a podcast. It said Carolyn was going to be the guest. I was like, let me see what Carolyn has to say. And I was listening to Johnny Fairplay's podcast, and he made actually a lot of comparisons between talking about the RIZ and myself from Survivor the Amazon. And I don't know if it's necessarily like a one-to-one comparison, or even one that Rizzo might find flattering. But I myself thought like he was somewhat evocative of myself, and not necessarily the things that maybe he would not want to be compared to me for, of, making questionable remarks or anything like that. But in terms of like the fun he was having in terms of like playing the game, like I definitely did see that spark. And I sent Johnny Fairplay a message to say, hey, don't get a big head. I don't listen to your podcast all the time, but I did listen to what you had to say, and you had nice things to say to me, and I appreciate it, and I hope you're doing good.
Rizzo also voting out an Alex as the third member of the jury.
That's true. So there you go. So Alex in Survivor the Amazon came in 7th place. I think this was 9th place. So, inflation.
Inflation is getting all of us. We're all feeling it.
Yes. But I could see that. I think that Rizzo is a little older than I was when I played in Survivor the Amazon, but certainly excited young guy there to go and play the game. And I could see the glimmer in his eye.
Do you see more comparisons to like gameplay or vibe? Because you're, both New York young guys, like vibe similar, but also the strategy, the mind for strategy.
I'd say a little bit more the vibe than the exact gameplay style, because I think that he is not necessarily, I think, playing the middle as much. I think he's sort of like very like firmly ensconced on one side. I can't see him flipping on Savannah and say to go with the other side of people. So I don't think it's necessarily a one-to-one.
Sure. So we have on this document, we've got questions about Survivor, Traitors.
Can I also compare? This was another thing, as Brandon and I were talking about, like what should we do in this slot before I said like, hey, let's do the mailbag. I was saying, like, could we compare the Survivor 49 cast to things? And one of my ideas was to compare them to sitcom characters. Could we cast different sitcoms with the cast of Survivor 49? And I did think that maybe could I compare the Uli 4 to the cast of Seinfeld?
Please, but tell me where we're going with Rizgat.
Okay. Well, I think so. I think that Rizzo is Jerry. Okay. I think Savannah is Elaine. I think Jawan is George. And I think Sage is Kramer. And Kramer and Elaine would have but I wonder if maybe if you did it the other way around, where maybe is Savannah Jerry and then Sage is Newman. But I think I'll go the first way around, where I think that because that's cleaner of the four, the core four, the Uli. I think that Rizzo, Jerry, Savannah is Elaine.
Okay.
Then Jawan is George, and then you have Sage is Kramer.
Yeah.
Kramer would put blackheads in a jar.
He would. He's exasperated often. He's walking in, doing his whole thing. I see it. My favorite sitcom line of all time is George when he says, "It's not a lie if you believe it." I use that often. I like that so much.
True across many reality TV shows.
Let's do a reality TV question. Why not?
Sure.
Alexander Blake Wind wants to know, in the current era, would you recommend someone go on reality TV?
So I think that it's a good question, because I think we know more about reality TV. We know more about how the sausage is made than ever before in the history of this thing. I think that, like, when I went to go play in Survivor, people loved reality TV, but I think that there were a lot of mysteries of what goes on, and everybody is so smart here. So I think that people should still go on reality TV, but I think that you need to go in armed with like what it is and what it isn't. And I think that as long as you sort of like are going in and are like conscious about, here's what I'm getting myself involved in, it's not necessarily going to be the thing that is like going to make or break my life, but it's something fun. It's a fun adventure that I'm going to go do. Then I think that you should be a willing participant to it. I think back in the old days that you would go into it, and I think that you'd be fed a lot of things of like, you're going to be on television, you're going to be a star, you're going to be famous, you're going to be, and then also that there was a lot more, I feel like, editing, manipulation, and Emily Nussbaum does a great job in her book, Cue the Sun, talking about like a lot of things that were done to people or like with characters, where I think that like they were like playing a lot more fast and loose on reality TV. And I think that there's a little more or a lot more accountability on the show's part. So maybe like the upside isn't there. Like you go on reality TV now, and maybe there's less of a chance that you are like, internationally famous. But if it's something that you want to do, still go do it.
Yeah. And there's no place
you did it. You like it. Look at you now.
I'm here. I got a microphone. I'm on the podcast. Yeah, listen, I recommend it. And there's never been more opportunity than there is now. Back when you did it for the first time, there were only 3 or 4 shows you could have done. Now there's 10 shows a year you could do.
Yeah. So look, there's certainly downsides of different things, but downsides to everything.
There's downsides to everything. And we've got people who want to know your upsides to life. How about Alyssa
Upside
wants
to
to know? Listen, I'm transitioning. Trying to transition. You can't transition. I'm here. Elisa wants to know, what is the most recent thing or moment in your life that gave you a lot of joy and happiness, whether big or small?
This is something I struggle with because I have a hard time sort of like slowing down and appreciating things. And it is something that I work on greatly, but I feel like when there are times like I'm very fortunate to get to do what I get to do. And sometimes like at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, everything went great today. This was I got to have a lot of fun. I got to do things with my kids. And so I've had like when we went to San Francisco and things went really, really well, I don't have like one specific thing that is like, okay, so I'm sorry, at least I don't have a great answer to this question, but practicing, appreciation for everything that I get to do is something that I do try to spend time on, because I can't imagine getting to do anything that would be more fun than what I get to do.
Yeah.
Look at us now.
Cool. Look at us now. We're here. We're on the podcast.
Yeah.
Captain Taco Face wants to know, speaking of the podcast, how often do you experience burnout from podcasting and watching reality TV? And how do you manage that?
Yeah, so I would say I have more burnout from the schedule as opposed to like what it is that I have to do. I don't feel like that it's ever like, oh my God, like I'm not over Survivor or the shows. Sometimes like when we have like a schedule where it's like one thing after another, I get burnt out by the end, like the end of the day. And again, what I get to do, it can be a little draining, but it's not hard what I have to do. But when the schedule is like, okay, there's like it's a podcast and then a call and then a call and then a podcast and a podcast. I was like, hold on, do I have time to eat today? Do I have time to take a shower? Like, what is this? And then, that's just like what I have to do at work. And I have like other responsibilities outside of sitting in this chair. So I do get like burnt out when it's a number of like consecutive days where it's a schedule where there's just no downtime. Because I think a lot of people have harder jobs than me, by sure. But they sort of have like a schedule and okay, I'm working from, 9 to 5 today. And like, it's a B word, but then at 5:30 it's over. And then, like my schedule sometimes is like, hey, I'm starting to work at, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then I'll be done at 11 at night.
Has the schedule been like this for 15 years, or has it now become so much more in the past, 5?
It comes and goes. There's probably, and honestly, the schedule right now is not grueling. So sometimes the schedule, especially like September, happened to be like a really challenging month where that we had everything going on with the Survivor preseason, plus everything with all of the nights of Big Brother coming up down the stretch, and then the Amazing Race was coming on, and then also I have like all the things, the other podcasts that are not Survivor that I do, and then also like run a company. And also like be a husband and a dad. So like those are like September was like, September, like early October, like that was actually like a particularly grueling stretch. And then I got, maybe related, maybe not. Then we went to New York and did a live show. And then I ended up getting pretty sick after that. But right now, things are going really well.
They're going great. Another Survivor question. I wish I had your name. Your name is not in the document, which is probably my fault. I probably deleted it by accident. How about, do you ever find yourself having rooting interest or dislike for certain players these days? Any notable examples, if so?
I tend to not watch Survivor with like a real rooting interest. That I tend to I try to be as objective as possible on the podcast. So I'm probably watching it, not necessarily. I don't know. Like when before you were on the show, did you watch it sort of like for the love of the sport, or did you have like your favorites that you were rooting for?
I think a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think once I became old enough to play, I think I was then watching for sport. But I think 11, 12, 13-year-old me is watching because I liked the people that were playing. But then as soon as I was eligible to go compete, it was like, which seems funny now, but then Game Face is on. You're watching game tape, which I never did in my youth.
So I do think that there's been like an evolution where I think with stan culture, as that's gone on with reality TV, I think that it used to be, okay, there's this season, there's this season, there's this season. I'm a fan of the show and I might have a favorite player, but overall I'm here because I'm a fan of the show. Whereas I feel like that over the years, and certainly like in the last few years, maybe, I think it's probably like, maybe it's not as as severe as it might have been at one time, where it's like, hey, that there are these 3 or 4 people that I am rooting for on the show, and if they win, I am happy, and if my favorite player doesn't win, the results don't count. It is invalid. And I definitely feel like that, we experienced that online. I'm not sure if that's necessarily how the entire fandom views the shows, but it's very hard to podcast about the show and have that mentality of like, okay, there's like a couple of acceptable outcomes and anything else is the season is ruined.
Well, and that's the great thing about what we do is it's not, I mean, granted, Big Brother's once a year, but if your team doesn't win the Super Bowl, you got to wait a whole year for more stuff. But here, there's there's 2 a year, and there's international franchises, and there's other shows that are similar. So if your person doesn't win, just wait 3 weeks until something else is on. And then that person who didn't win might end up on something else. It's happened.
Maybe.
How about this is right under this question. It's another Survivor question. Stuart wants to know, what are your thoughts on Alicia Calaway? I know you've said in the past that you felt like she got the spot in the alliance that should have been yours on All Stars,
Yeah.
but I wasn't sure if there was bad blood between you two. I've always gotten the vibe she's on the no-fly list for talking with T-Bird, and they put in parentheticals, apologies if this is too personal and you'd rather not answer. Too late.
This is a good question, and too late. I've already been asked it. So Alicia Calaway is certainly on the do fly list for Talking with T-Bird. I think she's been on the T-Bird list since the inception of Talking with T-Bird. And I don't know if T-Bird has ever had an update in terms of tracking her down. I think Alicia Calaway is somebody who's been pretty firmly off the grid. I'm not even sure if Dalton Ross contacted her and if she did a quarantine questionnaire.
I don't believe that she did.
I don't believe that there has been an Alicia Calaway sighting in quite some time. Yes? Yeah.
There was, I believe that Saul went to a viewing party in Connecticut. I think maybe during season 47 that she was at, like within the last year. I have personally tried to get her to do a recap of some sort. One, I don't know if she has working social media.
I doubt she is watching Survivor 49. I mean, I'm trying to think of in Survivor 50. Certainly, that she might have an opinion on Jenna Lewis and Colby. Maybe not so much Colby. Oh, Colby certainly from the Australian Outback days.
Yes. Yeah, I wonder if she got called for 50. I wonder if they tracked her down.
I don't know. I'd be surprised. I think she's just so far off of the grid. But my history with Alicia Calaway was that I met her at the Survivor of the Amazon finale party. I did a shot with her, and I was like so thrilled to get the chance to meet her. And then I ended up, I'm trying to think if I encountered her at all like the rest of that summer, because basically I do the Survivor of the Amazon. The finale is in May of 2003. And then I proceed to meet like all of the other survivors. And then also at the same time, Survivor All Stars is going to be coming up sometime later. And I guess I don't know if she was a shoo-in for Survivor All Stars. So I don't remember at what point that I might have been, thinking about her as somebody who was going to come back. But I've talked about, certainly in the Evolution of Strategy, about how the Labor Day weekend of 2003 that Boston Rob Mariano has survivors over at his house. And I drove up to Boston, Mass for the big party. Boston Rob's parents were like out of town and he was having like a big banger at his house, a rager. And Alicia Calaway was there, and she also like needed a ride. And I hit it off great with Alicia Calaway. I love Alicia Calaway, and so I was so thrilled when she was on my tribe at Chapera. And I think there might be a scene. I'm pretty sure it's in the episode and not just from my memory, where I'm like, hey, like we should work together. Like, hey, let's like Rob and Amber have a thing. We should do something. And we had like a good, like, I think there was a handshake, but then like for whatever reason that she did not love my antics on Survivor All Stars. She did not think that I was funny, and her and Amber got closer. And eventually I think that she became the fourth person in the core four at Chapera. And then I voted for her because I felt like, okay, it's either between Sue or Alicia as the person to go out. And I kind of felt like I wanted to keep, I knew Amber was tight with Alicia, in thinking it through, like, okay, maybe Sue would have been the better part. And I always say that, like, I talked to Boston Rob before we went to Tribal Council, and he seemed ambivalent to should it be Sue or Alicia. And I said, hey, let's do Alicia and keep Sue. And he's like, okay, great. Hindsight, playing it back over 20 years is like, anytime somebody's just giving you a very quick, like agreeing to like, no, I don't want to go to Chinese. Let's go to Indian food. And like, okay, great. Like they're probably not coming. You know what I mean? Like there was no, like if he was really invested in the decision, like I think he would have like stopped down and be like, hold on, no, we're not changing it. That's crazy. But that being said, I didn't ever see Alicia again in the game. But then I saw her I went to something at like Rolling Stone magazine, like in the preseason of Survivor All Stars, and she was there. and it was great to see her, and she seemed excited to see me. And then, you know, every time I saw her after that was always great. So we, you know, we're not necessarily on the same page, but it wasn't like that we had a rivalry or anything. Just felt like that she took my spot in the alliance, and I've always found her to be incredibly, you know, fun and lovely outside of the game. I think, though, that maybe she might be somebody who is, and we see this type of person on Survivor many times, where somebody who's like 2% body fat, somebody who's like incredibly fit, I do think gets a little cranky when the game starts. And like, I found her to be very, like, she's so fun outside of Survivor. I did not see a smile for the entirety of when she is playing Survivor. So I think that the lack of nutrition may affect her. And I think that she has like a game face, like does not care for any sort of nonsense in the game of Survivor, but I thought was always very fun outside Survivor. I would love to have her on the podcast or Talking with T-Bird.
Where was the last time you talked to her? Was it 2004?
I want to say it was probably 2004. It was probably like Survivor, you know, All-Stars reunion. I'm trying to think. I know Ethan had like a charity event shortly thereafter, but I don't think I ever had another run-in with her after. I hope she's doing great.
Yeah, me too. I'm surprised she didn't do the 10-year party that everybody talks about.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing her there. So I just think like that she's sort of like, okay, it was the thing she did, and she was sort of over it.
You want to answer a Traitors question?
Oh, well, I guess it depends what it is.
Adrian from Big Brother 27.
I mean, I want to answer all the questions.
There are a lot that we had to vet, but Adrian from Big Brother 27, he asked, did you win the Traitors?
I'm just so happy that Adrian knows who I am. I really, that after, you know, Taryn interviewed him twice in like 4 days, and he's like, who's Taryn? Yeah. So I'm so happy that to even be on Adrian's radar.
Sure. Morgan wants to know what
Morgan from Big Brother 27 also?
She said, did you win the Traitors? No. This Morgan says, what seasons of the Traitors did you rewatch in preparation for going on the show? And what was your favorite?
Yeah, so I actually didn't rewatch any of the US seasons. So I had seen Traitors 1, 2, 3, but I had never watched any international seasons of the Traitors. And then I watched a ton, where I found out that I was going to do it probably, I think it was maybe like late March, early April was when I found out. And then I was grinding Traitors episodes. I watched all of UK 1, 2, 3. I watched Canada 1 and 2. I watched Australia 2, and I watched I watched New Zealand 2. So I guess I watched 8 or 7 Traitors seasons, 7 of the international Traitors seasons.
Somebody had asked that your favorite faithfuls and your favorite Traitors. Do you have those from those international seasons? Do you have anybody that stuck out?
Well, of course, Queen Annabelle is a favorite of mine. Kevin Martin is one of my favorite faithfuls from Traitors Canada 1. I just loved Kevin so much. Those are my, you know, I thought that those are just like the people that were so fun to watch. And then I think the best Traitors are, you know, Cirie, Harry, and Netta.
I liked Harry a lot. That's my favorite season of any Traitors.
I think that UK 2 might be the best of the Traitor seasons.
And UK 1, I think, is the second
so far.
Best.
UK 1, interesting.
I love that season, and I
didn't really love UK 1 that much.
Did you love Wilf? Did you love Wilf, you know, the whole time?
You know, I just feel like sometimes, and maybe that was like the first of the international seasons that I watched, I wasn't as invested, where I just felt like that the people that were all left at the end, I couldn't tell you the names of one of the people that were left with Wilf. I just felt like that the faithful were kind of nondescript.
Yeah. I only know, I think Aaron.
I could describe some of them.
Sure. As could I.
Probably not on this podcast.
No. Aaron, I think, was on Love Island. That's the only reason I know the guy's name.
Mm-hmm.
Chris wants to know, what's your favorite purchase that you've made that was under $100?
I don't know if I have a specific one. I would say the things that I enjoy most for under $100, I think like any sort of like appliance that you're going to use every single day, like a solid coffee maker. It's something that is like you get use out of it every day is great. I find anything that helps facilitate family time is also like, I think like a air popcorn maker is something that's sort of like, okay, we're watching a movie, it's making things special, like this is great, this was not an expensive purchase. Things like a football, like things that like you can are a accessory to having precious family time, I think are always, or things that you are going to use every single day, like a electric toothbrush, like something that will be a part of your like everyday ritual. I think I'm big on like I take a lot of joy, just go back to that other question, in the like this little thing that I get to do every single day. Maybe more than most.
Mm-hmm. And the electric toothbrush helps with that, as you get a good
I wouldn't say that
experience.
I love brushing my teeth, but it's sort of like, okay, this is a neat thing that I get to do.
I haven't charged my electric toothbrush, so it's just like a little heavier than a normal toothbrush. It's the only benefit that I'm getting. This is a nice reminder to do
What do
that.
you mean? You have like batteries in it?
No, it's got to charge. It's a USB. It's got to like charge like, via the
Yeah.
wall.
Do you
I
have
just
it
have it.
plugged in? Why is it heavier than a normal toothbrush?
Well, because it's an electric toothbrush, but it's just not charged. So it's just like now it's a little heavier than a
Oh,
regular
so
toothbrush.
you have an electric toothbrush and you use it manual.
I'm using it manual. I've been using it manual for quite a while. It's because I haven't plugged it back in. The cord's in the bath or the
Yeah. Are
bedroom,
you supposed to do that? Does it work that way?
No,
I don't think
it's a
so.
regular toothbrush. Trevor Chong wants to know, speaking of family time, when do you think an appropriate time is to allow your kids to have a cell phone? I don't really want my kids to get
Yeah,
phones until
I
much
didn't want my
later in
kids to
life.
get a phone either. It's very hard, I think, as a parent to manage the screen time for the kids, because I know, and I tell this to my kids, and they don't care, they don't want to listen. It's like, I know how hard it is for me and Nicole to manage the screen time. Like, I know it's a constant battle for me to deal with. All right, this is too much screen time. Let me put the phone down. But the issue is that they go to school, and my kids, if you haven't been keeping up, my boys are 12 and 10. And Dominic, he really wanted, last year for his birthday, he really wanted a phone. And I got him a dumb phone. I got him a flip phone. And he got the flip phone, and he was very happy to get it. And then he said he went to school, and he said they made fun of him that he had a flip phone. And then he didn't want it anymore. And I was like, that my head was ready to explode, of like, I didn't even want him to have a phone. And then that, oh no, this phone's not good enough. I'm being bullied because I don't have a smartphone like the other kids. So now it's like peer pressure of like, hey, where's your, like, we don't want him to have a smartphone. And he's like, hey kid, where's your smartphone? Now, allegedly, I'm not there to see the peer pressure or bullying that goes on, but it's like, hey, how come you're not in the group chat? How come, where's your phone? Are you a baby? I presume they
Mhm.
say. And so that we did give him my old iPhone, and now he has that. But you gotta like really be on top of it, because these other kids, and like, not to say that he's perfect, but the other kids could be like, so, like, who's saying inappropriate things in the chat. Like, I don't want him on any social media, but that they're on YouTube, and like that we don't give him TikTok or Instagram or anything, but they have to have YouTube, and then they do the YouTube shorts. And I think for the attention spans for the kids, I don't think it's a good thing. So it is a constant battle when you have children of the devices, and it's like, hey guys, no devices at the table. And they'll be like, but I'm not even looking at it. Like, okay, then what's the problem? Then why
I
it's an
also
issue.
I had that with asking for a phone, but I think I'm the first generation of asking for the phone. What did you ask for? What was the thing for you when you're this age that you wanted? Was
Game
that
Boy.
Game Boy? And
I
was it the same
really
argument?
I remember I was in 6th grade, and I feel like that I really, for a graduating elementary school, I really wanted Game Boy, and I remember that I did not get it. And I remember being very disappointed. But then at some point I did have Game Boy, so I don't know how that necessarily came to be. I don't know if it was a Christmas or what, but I remember being very much, I would like this, and being told, no, you are not getting it.
What generation Game Boy was this?
I think it was this was the original, like, titular Game Boy.
the titular Game Boy. I don't know when these things come out. The titular Game Boy. What do you think? Maddie Wolf wants to know. What do you still look forward to each week about Survivor? What about Survivor draws you in still?
I love what I get to do with the podcast, where I get to talk about the things that are going on. And I think that I get to talk to very interesting people about what's going on. I still love to break down the game and talk about all of the different possibilities of what could happen. I do feel like that we get less of that in terms of like modern day Survivor, even with the longer runtime. I think that maybe because the game used to be a little bit more straightforward, where we had like a lot of people where we could really break down of like, okay, it's the final 9, what's going to happen? But in the new era, I think that there's a lot more variance with the journeys and the powers and the different things that could happen. And so I think that it's a little harder to prognosticate where do we go from here? Whereas I feel like that in earlier times, I feel like it was easier to have more strategic conversations about the show. Does that track for you?
That tracks for me. I think about whenever this comes up, I think about like the Kageon Final 8 on, the Jeff reboot on. Like, to me, watching it in 2014, like, felt like a movie. Like every episode, you know every character, you know the motivations of each character, who they're speaking with, who they get along with, and then it ultimately ends in a fantastic way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this, like, current Survivor, I think feels more like a TV show to me than it ever has, which I dislike. I think there are so much, you
like when it feels like a movie.
I like when it feels like a movie, and it's not to say it's runtime, but I feel like when it is, it just feels so narratively sound. And I think the randomness feel like, not to mention a sitcom again, like of Seinfeld or Friends, where there are these new plot points that show up every episode. When you have a movie, it's in 3 acts, you kind of know what's happening in each act, or, there's not
Jawan's is we're in act 2.
We're in act 2. And I get that, like, I hear that we're in act 2, but I think there's the randomness to me is what is making me enjoy Survivor a lot less. Where, like, people cite Operation Italy as being one of the best episodes of the show, as is the Liz Applebee's moment. And it's whether it's strategy or whether it's a personal moment, it's just, it feels so real, whereas the extra components do not.
Yeah. I think that also we're also smart in terms of like how the show is edited. And I think that a lot of times that we feel like, because we know we're so sophisticated as viewers of the show, that, okay, we know this person's not winning, we know this person's not winning, we know this person's not winning, we know this person's not winning. It's between this person, and they're not in danger right now. And so we know it's going to be one of these two. And it doesn't necessarily, like, maybe if you were there in the real time watching it, like, say we had live feeds for Survivor, maybe it would be like, hey, anything could happen. But I think that we're so sophisticated as viewers that it doesn't necessarily feel like that there are, at this point in Survivor, it doesn't feel like that there are 8 possible outcomes for Survivor 49. It feels like that there's maybe 2 or 3 possible outcomes for Survivor 49.
And the seasons that people cite as their favorite often being your Kageons, your David versus Goliath, Heroes versus Villains, like Micronesia, you have a wide array of people who could have won from Final 8 on.
And even in Survivor 48, it really felt like that, okay, this is predetermined, like, okay, Joe's going to win, Joe's going to win, Joe's going to win. I remember the light bulb went off. I said, wait, hold on a second. What if what if Kyle wins and Joe is going to Survivor 50? I guess the curveball for me was Kyle was going to win and they're all going to Survivor 50.
Bring them all.
I got.
You got got. Lots of people. I'll condense this all into one big question is everybody wants to know from you where, I guess two things, where you see the show going from season 51 and on, and what you think they will do. I guess what you want them to do and what you think they'll do.
We got actually surprisingly way more questions about Survivor 51 than Survivor 49. And I do think that is going to be such an interesting point. Okay. Because we know, okay, with Survivor 50, the cake is baked. It is what it is. It's going to be iconic or it's going to suck. But whatever it is what it is. They've already done it. Where so many people have focused their attention is what does Survivor look like? I had some good conversation with Dr. Evie Jagoda the other day about what is Survivor 51. And we were talking about the idea of like, should Survivor 49 have been branded as the end of the new era of that they're going to break the hourglass again. And now the new era is over. And then we have Survivor 50 where, okay, the new era meets the old era. And then Survivor 51, what's west of Westeros? What is the next expansion of Survivor? And I think that that is so interesting. I really think Survivor 51 is the most important season in the history of the franchise. I mean, it's going to set the tone. And I think that Survivor has a lot to worry about. And I say that because historically, Survivor has not nailed the season after the big all-star season. And now listen, Vanuatu has aged wonderfully, but in the real time was not beloved. People were saying like, I don't know. And listen, it has aged beautifully, gracefully. But at the time, people were not necessarily feeling like, okay, hey, Survivor is back and better than ever. Vanuatu, we love it. Then you had, of course, I mean, Gabon in the real time. I'm not sure necessarily like how it was received. Not Jeff's favorite season for sure. Then Survivor Nicaragua famously was not beloved after Heroes versus Villains. And then I mean, Ko Wrong was, I think maybe they got around it because they filmed it before Survivor Second Chances. And then, HHH after Game Changers. And then Survivor 41 after Winners at War. So I think Survivor has struggled with what do we do after we do the big returning player season. And I think that really what they should do is, and I've never been a big like, oh, you can't do 26 days. But I do think that there are things that they can do to help to get people excited about it. And I think that they may not want to do themes, but I think that finding a theme to get people a little bit more excited about it, I think could be a way to go. I mean, 2 tribes, I think would feel like a very different start. I think that the issue with the new era, and I know all of the reasons why it is that way, it's just like so samey same. And I'm not saying anything that, everybody who listens to this podcast hasn't heard a million times before, but that there is very little novelty to Survivor. And I think that you need a lot of things. And Survivor has been so fortunate in terms of like figuring out the recipe of what works over the years and being willing to adapt. And I feel like that in the new era, I do feel like that there has been a stubbornness to adapt, that the greatest Survivor players, they come in and here's my strengths and here's what I want to do. And then the game, like Mike Tyson, can punch you in the face. And then what's your next move? How do you adapt? And I feel like that in the new era, there's been this thought of like, no, we don't, that this is what it is now. This is the thing. And I think that people would love to see a little bit more variation and novelty from week to week where, okay, we know what show we're watching, but we like to feel like, okay, this season feels different than we're in the same location. Like, to have it also be the same exact format every single time just doesn't feel like we're getting a different experience. And I think that we need a little bit, and maybe in 51, I am crossing my fingers that I'm hoping that they think the same way. But if they just feel like, hey, we're just going to keep doing the status quo and just keep rolling the same thing out over and over again, I do feel like that would be a mistake.
If they did extend the days, if we now, it's not 26 days, it's 33 or 30, and that's the only change. Does that, you think, make a difference to anybody? No.
Honestly, like, I feel like I would much rather keep it 26 days, but come back with 2 tribes and a theme and like some other wrinkles to, give us something. And I think that the casting also, where we find like lovely people to come and play, but I think that maybe we want to have people where, I know that Jeff recently spoke about, like, hey, we don't want the villain, they don't want the Corinnes and the Russells to come back and play, and people who want to be mean for the sake of being mean. But I do feel like that we need more people that are really going for it because they want to win, not necessarily because it's their dream to be on Survivor. And I totally understand people who want to be on Survivor because it's their dream to be on Survivor. But I feel like that does not necessarily translate to the best television. And I think that we need to find ways to create more conflict in the show, because I think that that's something that also people are attracted to. I just think that there's been a little bit of an indifference in the community to Survivor 49. And I hope it's just because of Survivor 50, but I think it's also because that the product on the screen has not captured the imagination of the Survivor fans. And that wasn't the case in Survivor Samoa, and it wasn't the case in Survivor Philippines, or Survivor, maybe a little bit in Survivor Worlds Apart when they started to do the second chance vote. But you've had other returning player seasons that are coming up. Nobody was saying, I know it was an early time, nobody's like, I don't care about Pearl Islands because I'm only thinking about Survivor All-Stars. That the show was giving you things to care about in those other pre-All-Star seasons, and I just think that they need to figure out a little bit of what can we be doing to recapture some novelty, recapture some of the conflict and the things that the fans really care about. Maybe not necessarily the show that the producers want to make, but the show that the fans really want to see. And I think that in the last few years, I think the producers are making the show they want to make, but it's not necessarily the show that you, the person at home, wants.
Do you think that the advertising for season 50 throughout 48 and the end of 48, do you think that did anything to cause the indifference, or do you think the indifference happens?
I really don't think so. I don't think it's that, like, okay, people who love Survivor aren't saying like, I can't even concentrate on Survivor 49 because I'm too busy thinking about Survivor 50. Nobody's saying that.
Nobody's saying it. It's an interesting thought. Yeah, it's funny to think about, like, when you play Survivor and when people for 15 years after you play Survivor, we don't have to ever go anywhere again. Like, when you go to Fiji, you see that they have such a well-oiled operation. Like, they won't ever leave. I don't think they'll ever leave. But the idea that you don't have to. They don't have to.
But you can do other things that are that to reskin it, to make it. And I think that some of it, what you can do and what they've been hesitant to do is do more seasons where you are bringing back returning players and, bring back, rivalries that have happened across other seasons, or build themes around other returning players that you would like to see come back.
That's what I mean, is they could, you go there, or you're on your way there and you don't know whether you're on 2 tribes or 3 tribes or what the challenges will look like. Those are the things that are, I think, easy to switch around. And budgetary, I think, in terms of challenges, like some of the most fun challenges that were on in the first 10 years of the show, like you don't need all that much money to do. There were matching challenges.
Yeah.
EG had a dancing challenge,
Yeah, and I think that the 3-tribe format in the pre-merge, I think, locks you into all of these challenges being some kind of a race, where I think that there are different endurance challenges that you could be doing when it's head-to-head in 2 tribes. So I think that the challenges would feel a little bit more fresh, where that you had like the challenge that they had, maybe the best challenge of the season was where you had the 5 people on one side and 5 people on one side in the endurance challenge, and then the battle between Sophie and Savannah, like that was probably the best challenge moment of the whole season. And that was like this like group challenge that results in a heads up, and you could do that in the pre-merge if you have 2 tribes.
Yeah, you could do that. And there's so many, like we're not going to get the themed to the region challenges again, which I love. But like Vanuatu was a challenge. They're chasing around pigs. Like it's new and fun. Gaboan has a challenge where they're throwing fruit into this and catching it. Like,
and
that's
none
the
of those
kind of
challenges like on its own is like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. But just the idea of there being novelty, of that it's memorable because it's not just the same old, same old.
Yes.
All of the challenges they're doing are fine. The issue is that it's the same thing over and over and over again. You could have the greatest meal that you ever wanted, but if you have it for dinner every single night, you're going to get sick of it, unless you're me, which is basically like what I do. But that for most people, like novelty is something that humans like.
Yes. It's true. I would love to see it. I would love a full rebrand after
a rebrand.
51.
What do you want to rebrand it to?
Well, no, we do Survivor. Like the new era is a rebrand. Like, let's do it again. Bring it to McKinsey. They'll fix it up.
Okay.
Jared Dobro wants to know.
Maybe Mike White, when he's on Survivor 50, will like get a hold of Jeff's ear, or maybe on like some of these like long endurance challenges.
Maybe that's why they put him there. It's like undercover boss. Is like, he'll leave and say,
Mike White's going to go undercover and Survivor 50 and come back with like, here are my notes.
Jared Dobro wants to know, should the CBS returnee seasons be considered a different show, like the RuPaul universe? I think this is very interesting.
So I am not extremely well versed in the RuPaul's universe, but is it like the challenge where the seasons on Paramount are not necessarily canonically the challenge?
Yeah, it's like the Challenge All-Stars equivalent to, and I've long said a Survivor straight to Paramount Plus season that you air over the summer, that you just film a third one. Like, why not do that? Bring the folks back that you cut from 50, or bring back. I'm not saying
would it be a shorter season.
I mean, I don't know how you can go much shorter. You can go a little shorter, I guess, but you can.
How many wins would it count as, though?
Don't throw me under the bus. I'm not going to be. Yeah. That's a full
win. Brandon, the direct to Paramount season of Survivor, should that be counted as a win?
I think everybody would count that as a full win. I don't think there's any I think if it's in this, it's a full win regardless. I think the thinking it's not a full win is whatever. But yes, they do like their.
What if Nick Wilson won it?
We're inviting Nick. Well, what's the theme? We're inviting Nick Wilson.
Anyway, so yeah, why not? I mean,
I like it.
I think that really the thing to watch in terms of Survivor is that Paramount has new corporate ownership in Skydance, and I think that maybe the people at Paramount don't necessarily know what the future. I mean, you would think this is a successful franchise. This is a good IP. You would think that they would want to be in the Survivor business as long as possible, but we have no idea really, what, and I think a lot of people at Paramount have no idea what is the, corporate philosophy of, do they want to cut the budget for, shows like Survivor? Do they want to do 8 seasons a year? Do they want, 24 episodes a season? We don't know.
Yeah. And this is really the only time that I know about that there has been so much uncertainty with what comes next, both from the rebranding standpoint and also this new ownership standpoint.
So I think that there was some uncertainty about Survivor, where I feel like in the past of Survivor, from its inception till around like season 30, I feel like people always talked about, well, they'll go for like 2 more years, Survivor, and then they're going to wrap it up. And that was the case for like, the first 12, 13, I guess what Heroes versus Villains is 10 years in. So yeah, about the first like 15 years of the show, people are like, oh, it's like going to go for like 2 more years. It wasn't really until the 30s that the show really started to have like, well, maybe it could go on forever. And now here we are like at 50 and, you foresee it going on infinitum, but I think that there is like a little bit of uncertainty just only around the new corporate ownership at Paramount.
When you started the podcast, was the expectation that the show would then end in a few years, or you were just...
They don't make it like I had like some great idea, a blueprint of. I remember starting Heroes vs. Villains, like, oh boy, too bad I didn't start this like 2 years ago, because I probably could have made it into something before the show goes off the air.
And now look where we are on the podcast. Chris wants to know: do you ever think about your life, what your life looks like when you retire from podcasting?
I do not have a good idea of what my life would look like from to retire from podcasting. What would I do? I mean, what else do I have? Like, if I retired now, I guess I could spend more time with my kids. Like, by the time I retire, my kids are going to be like adults. What am I going to do? I guess like if I have grandkids, but like, frankly, like if you know me, like, I don't know, like, is hanging out with grandkids all the time going to be super fun?
There was a question.
I didn't want to spend a lot of time with my own babies when they were. I like spending time with my kids now that they are older and can converse and do stuff. But I didn't really love that part of being. There were nice moments, but don't touch that. Don't touch that. Come on, stop that. I'm not. Nicole desperately misses that period of time, but I don't know what I would do. I don't have a lot of friends outside of the podcast. Yeah. I mean, I have many friends that I can call up and have a wonderful chat like this, like on a podcast, but I don't have a ton of friends outside of this. I don't play golf or tennis. So like, what else would I do other than eat different food every day?
Which is nice. It's nice to do that. Do you?
I love what I get to do. So yeah. The question is, how long will people listen to me? And I'll assume that we have reality TV before I become too old and out of it and unsightly to be on a podcast. And then I don't know what I would do.
Do you want to call people when you're not doing this just to chat, or is that not something that you even have interest in?
I always enjoy talking to people on the phone. I love a good phone call, and like when it's very fun, but I feel like that I will rarely like, oh, I have free time where I'm not podcasting, let me like call a person up on the phone.
You don't do that?
Very, very, very rarely.
Who would you call if you did that? You have like
you.
And we do that all the time. Dylan wants to know this. You didn't highlight this, I'm asking it anyway. Dylan wants to know, how did you know you were ready to have kids? That's something that I'm interested to know from you.
So when we had Dominic, I was 34. I think, I turned 35 right after he was born. And, it's a 2-part decision. You typically, if you're lucky, both people turn the key and say, hey, we're ready. And no, Nicole and I were in our 30s, and there's also a biological element of like, hey, well, it's like starting to get to the point where if we're going to do this, like, we got to go soon. We got to like, get the train out of the station. That makes it sound like that I'm being like graphic. I just meant like, you have like you are up against the clock, in some capacity. And so, it felt time to, we always said we wanted to. I think also part of it, also the timing wise, was my dad passed away in 2011. And I did start to feel like, okay, I want to have a family. I feel like that was like part of it of like, okay, this is like something that I feel a little bit more ready to do, sort of like reflecting on, life in general. That when you lose somebody, like lose a parent, that you, I think, feel like a little bit more like the scope of things. And we felt like the time was right. And that's, soon thereafter, Dominic came.
And then you did it again.
And then Anthony.
Yeah, twice.
Yes.
Aaron, this is not related to the previous question. Aaron wants to know, have you ever dated or hooked up with a famous person / Survivor player in your single days?
Oh, my God. So, no, I did not. I really, but it was in my mind when I went to go play on Survivor the Amazon. I had, not had much success dating anybody famously. And I thought to myself, like, wow, well, this is going to be like, I'm on TV. I'm probably gonna meet a lot of women, I would think, right? It's not crazy to think that I could like meet women. And then I ended up starting to date the first lady of podcasting during Survivor the Amazon, and never anybody else. So I got exactly one date from being on television.
The infinite date, the lifetime date. Did you meet Nicole pre-Survivor Amazon? Because she was
Nicole
your sister's
was my
friend.
sister's friend, and so she knew me.
She knew
and
you.
Did not really give me the time of day prior to Survivor the Amazon. But my parents used to have watch parties, and then she would come over, and then after. My parents would have like these big My parents were like the Bryson Wen of Wanta, of like inviting like everybody they knew to come over and watch Survivor on Thursday nights, and they would like make a bunch of food and everything. And then my sister brought her friends over, and then Nicole would come to the party, and then afterwards we would go to the local big bar, Mulcahy's, and then yada yada yada. The rest is history.
But you guys had met even before you filmed Survivor.
I mean, yeah, Nicole went to the same high school as me.
Yes. Interesting. How fun. I didn't know that. We got a ton of Survivor questions, so let me rattle through a few.
But I cannot remember one conversation that I had with her or around her. Like, it wasn't like that I like was like, secretly pining for her prior to going on Survivor. And then like, oh, then she'll see me on television.
But now you pine.
She has more memories of me from being like my friend's loser brother, I guess.
And now look, you're in your shared home. It's lovely. Worked out. Dalen Curvo wants to know, now that Jeff is older than most contestants, do you think that changes how he hosts?
I definitely think that Jeff has mellowed out, but I think that Jeff has been older than most of the contestants for some time. Like, I really do feel like that the biggest, and, certainly like I have given much thought to Jeff's career over the course of Survivor, but I do feel like that after COVID, I do feel like that there was like a re-examination of Jeff and his role. And I did feel like that, like then sort of like midway through the new era, like he started to come back with Spicy Jeff, and Spicy Jeff I feel like was received pretty well, but I kind of feel like that he's a little bit like foot off the gas with Spicy Jeff. I feel like that around the time that you played 45, 46, like, yeah, he had the knife and everything. I feel like, all right, here we go. Spicy Jeff is back. But I don't know. Has there been a lot of Spicy Jeff 47, 48, 49?
No, I think
not that spicy.
He cried.
I mean, he cried.
He cried.
So it's been like, that's the antithesis of Spicy Jeff. What's the opposite of spicy? Mild?
Mild Jeff. Is mild the opposite of spicy? I think sweet is the opposite of spicy.
Sweet is, because you could be sweet and spicy. If it's the opposite, you can't be mild and spicy.
You can be sweet and spicy? A food can be sweet and spicy?
Yeah.
I'm not having.
You ever have sweet chili?
Oh,
one of my favorite condiments.
Is that one of your favorite condiments?
Top condiment for me. Yeah. Love it.
It's a good
Put
wing.
that
I've got a
on, put that on your Chipotle next time.
I get the
On
mild
your,
Chipotle.
on your rice bowl. But so I think that, after 2020, I do think that Jeff spent a lot of time. I do think that he went back. I mean, famously, he opens up Survivor 41 and says like, "Hey, how about come on in, guys? I'm not saying that anymore, right? Right?"
Mhm.
So I think that he did do like a reexamination of himself in terms of like being the host and facilitator, and really tried to like, I'm gonna build these people up. I'm not there to cut people down like he might have been a little bit more aiming to do in the teens and the 20s of the show. So I do think that you see a little bit more fatherly slash grandfatherly slash Uncle Jay. And so I think that he is there a little bit more to build the people up.
Yes. Agreed.
And I do feel like that this is something that he has talked about a lot, of that he has said this many times on the On Fire podcast, and then also on, I heard it on the commercial for the episode this week, where that he has, this is like a stump speech for Jeff of, the game is the lore, the prize is the experience. That, and he has like really said that, and that has been sort of like a mission statement for the show, which I do not think is the right mission statement for. I totally get that that's the show that Jeff wants to make, but I think that the show that people want to see is a show where, maybe the experience is the lore, but the prize is the prize. Like the prize, the prize should be the lore, and the prize should also be the prize.
Yeah. And I think the way that, I don't know if they have the money to do this, but I think the way that you get that back is you raise the prize money enough to where it makes
nobody cares. Nobody cares. But
if
you tell me, would you go back to your season? Would anybody have played differently? Would Drew Basile have pulled out a different move if you were playing for 5 million instead of 1 million?
That's not my argument. My argument is, I think you get the people that the fans want to see on Survivor. If it breaks the news cycle that, hey, Survivor's now 5 million, I think you get a whole host of new applicants that are not those people.
I don't know. Like, I think that people are like really, maybe, as we are potentially entering a rougher economic time, maybe $1 million, maybe like a small bump up in the prize, but I don't even think they have to. I think that people would be willing to do a lot of things for $1 million. Like, I'm trying to remember what I'm sure it's like been said on a million different reality shows, but people do really bad stuff for a lot less than $1 million.
Yeah, Savannah, that was her first confessional this season. She said, I've had a lot worse jobs for a lot less money or something.
Yeah. So I think that people like that are in it for the money, I think are, we don't need out and out scoundrels, but I think the people that are really looking to in the new era, we have largely abandoned the idea of the prize. I think that the only contestant that I can think, and I reference this a lot, is the only time that I really remember the prize being talked about was for Jesse Lopez, as he weighed whether or not to betray Cody. And it was, he gets the letter from Gio, get that money, baby. And he takes no joy in what he's going to do. And we see that emotional turmoil that he has, that he's willing to make the big move that he feels like is necessary to win the game in order to win the money to provide for his family. And if the money ever comes up on modern day Survivor, it's only in the context of, I am here to provide for my family.
Yeah. I think that Jesse moment is the best moment of the new era. I thought about that the other day.
That could be a good off-season podcast of what are the best moments of the new era.
I think that
is a great episode.
Yeah. And that moment is most reminiscent of the old era. How about
it is?
For Bobby Hall, friend of the podcast.
I mean, when we talk about that, the things that we like most of the new era are the things that remind us very much of the old era. It is like a little bit of a sign of that, maybe like instead of running from what we did that was successful in the past, like that we don't have to do everything the same way, but there were reasons why people fell in love with the show. We don't need to make a new show.
Yeah, I mean, like even the Liz moment, I think is just you could put that in any season 1 through 40, and that still happens. The great blind sides of the new era, Kelly's blind side, you can put in any 1 through 40. There aren't a lot of. I mean, I guess Caleb's shot in the dark is the one moment that is great TV that is in a new era exclusive. But I think all those other moments you can plop into an older season. Speaking of older seasons, Bobby Hall wants to know who from Survivor All-Stars do you think does the best in the new era? And they put in parentheticals, and why is it Amber? Is it Amber?
Does Amber do the best in the new era? I'm not sure necessarily if that's the case. I mean, I'm trying to think of what a new era winner, needs to do to win. I think that you need to have a pretty good social game. I think you need to be largely conflict averse. I think that other than Gabler, I'm trying to think of a new era winner that got into a lot of conflict.
Jam with Josh a little bit, but I guess Josh isn't on the jury. But
Josh didn't make it.
Yeah.
So, and I largely conflict averse, not necessarily 100% conflict free. Amber is probably not a bad pick. Jenna Maraska is certainly somebody I think that she would translate to what she's able to do in the new era. I mean, Jenna Lewis, will get to see how she plays in the new era in Survivor 50. Ethan, I think, would do well in any era, especially, 30-year-old Ethan when he's like at the peak of his powers. And could not Rob Cesternino dominate the new era?
He could have. Almost happened. The Big Biscuit.
But I think I'm looking towards like younger players who, can play the middle, avoid being seen as the biggest threat that's out there, stay out of big fights with other players. Young Boston Rob in the new era, I don't see it necessarily working for him. Even without his resume, I think you drop him into a new era season, and I think that it does. The way that he builds a group and then keeps the group loyal through, like, hey, they're going to be afraid to cross me. I don't think that game is necessarily a new era game that translates. With all due respect to Rob,
does Boston Rob have a new era equivalent? If Rizzo is the U, who's the Boston Rob first time?
I don't know if there is a Boston Rob that you could play in the new era. I think that really the 3 tribes of 6, I think, really hurts it. I'm trying to. Do you have anybody? I mean, I think that like when we take a look at like the casting in the new era, like I think that the young, cocky, construction worker that Boston Rob ends up being, like the 25-year-old Boston Marquesas Rob, I don't think is cast on the new era.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if they're applying. Like, they have to be applying that person.
I think that we've had other people who are sort of like cocky players of Ice Cream David, but it's not necessarily like a young up and comer. I mean, he was like 40 when he played. No shade to David, but yeah, I'm trying to think of who would be sort of like the, Nicole from this season said that she was the love child of Boston Rob and Shambo. I didn't see it.
Oh, she could have been. We didn't see it.
Could Gabe have been the closest to Boston Rob in the new era?
That's the best thoughts so far out of the 2 names you've said.
I mean, Gabe was somebody who is, younger guy from the East Coast, had like a group of people that tried to keep together, was willing to take big swings, win some challenges, kind of presented a little cocky in the edit.
Yeah, maybe that's the best comp. I can't think of anybody that I would say is not that or is better than that. And I asked that.
I'm trying to think. Q, it's a little harder to squint and see it.
Yeah, Q feels more coach to me.
Yeah, but Q was not necessarily gonna try. Like he did have a group, but then immediately like targeted the people that were in his group.
And we get more of that in season 50.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I got a moving dog over here. Apologies for the jingling. The Big Biscuit wants to know, I asked this on purpose. If you were in your 20s now and ended up playing Survivor in the new era instead of the Amazon, do you think you would have found the same success? If so, why do you think your skill set at that age was perfect for that specific era of Survivor?
So one big advantage that I had in Survivor the Amazon was that I knew the show better than almost anybody. And a lot of people that were there did not really know the show particularly well. I think that one of the things that I had going for me, which I don't necessarily know would be a strength in the new era to like transplant myself to quantum leap into, and I would assume that I am like armed with now 40 some odd seasons of Survivor knowledge, is that I was presenting as a like unassuming, nice kid who is just happy to be there. And now that was my excitement and my enthusiasm for being on Survivor was probably endearing to the players who were there of like, oh, look at this like loser. He's just so excited to be here. This is his dream. How quaint. But in the new era, I don't think that that would particularly be a appreciated skill set because it's everybody has that. Everybody is a enthusiastic person who's living out their dream of being on Survivor. And so if anything, I think that I might be looked at in a smaller tribe of maybe somebody who's not a physical asset in the challenges and somebody who like, oh, he seems like he knows a lot about the show. That could be dangerous. He could be a threat. So yeah, if I was with the right group of people, like I could see a world where my skills would be able to translate well. But there's also, I think there's a lot of variance in my game, no matter when I play in Survivor history.
Yeah. And you see like a Rizzo. I think Rizzo does great in any permutation.
I do think though that if I was going to play at any point in Survivor history, I think that I would do best in an 8-person tribe, a 10-person tribe, where the tribe isn't necessarily looking to me to like carry the weight in the challenge. Like I've always said, like I am, not a disaster in the challenges. I'm like if you had like a feisty old guy or a really strong woman on the challenge on the tribe. Like I think that's where like my physicality is sort of like, spry 60-year-old or like, probably like not, like one of the like medium to most athletic women on the tribe.
Yeah.
That's like right. Not like a really athletic woman. A really athletic woman is going to smoke me. But
sure.
In terms of like my strength, I think I probably is like very comparable to like a strong woman.
Yeah. Yeah. My Survivor was on the same time as Big Brother 25. And there was a Big Brother subreddit post of, can we make the challenges more equitable for people like Felicia? And I was cited in the comments also. If I were to go to Big Brother, we need for Felicia and me both to excel at the challenges. But you know what? The 6 challenge.
Felicia did win more challenges than you. She was HOH.
I won none.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have loved it. The 6-person tribes.
So if anything, Felicia was doing fine.
I never said she wasn't. She's great. She's gonna tutor me for next time. I'm getting the note that we are running low on time, so I got 2 more questions.
Okay.
Let's go with this is from Sarah, who says, I was at the live show in San Francisco, but I kind of missed hearing the podcasters on stage. I found myself so excited to meet all of the podcasters, maybe more than the actual survivors.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this was an intentional change. There were so many people on the panels. It was a little hard to keep focus. Feel free to not read this one. I was just wondering.
Yeah, so we actually did have a lot of the podcasters on stage during the San Francisco show. So if anything, it was an intentional change to have the podcasters on some of the panels where I think we had, 5 panels that we put together. And then other than when I had Parv on the stage, I had one of the podcasters on every single panel, which I liked because, one, I do feel like that people have these relationships with the podcasters, which is something that I really love about what we've built on RHAP, but also that the podcasters ask good questions. And so they might be thinking of things as I'm trying to like remember what we've talked about and what we haven't, that the podcasters are really good at throwing questions out. And I thought they all did a really good job, where we had Asia, Shannon, Mike Bloom, Taryn, and Chappelle on the panels in San Francisco.
Yeah, I think that went great. And that was a very smoothly ran live show. It went great.
And we do a lot of stuff
great.
with the podcasters before the show comes on the commercial breaks and stuff like that. It's just like tough we've got like 30 Survivor alumni sometimes that are there, and they all want to come on the stage. And then it's also tough to also like work in every podcaster that's there onto the stage.
Yeah, and they love the microphone. Missy wants to know, which 4 contestants would you place
what
on
does Muffin think?
Oh, Muffin, unfortunately not here. Missy EANSOR, Ansor wants to know the 4 contestants you think, or you would place rather, on a second Survivor Mount Rushmore.
This is a great question. At one point in, the tribe and I have spoken. We were thinking about like, should we do like lists throughout the book? And one of the like, okay, well, who's on the Survivor Mount Rushmore? I'm like, well, okay, it's actually very easy, as Jeff pointed out the other day. But the second Mount Rushmore, this is where things get pretty interesting, and certainly Survivor 50 could really end up, there is variance here. Okay, so first off, the second Mount Rushmore, 5 through 8, what should it be called? Mount Rushmore. It's a Mount, like what's
Mount Rush
what's
almost?
A little less than more. Mount Rush. Slightly more.
But
it's not Mount Rush less, because I've said that Mount Rush less is what the bottom 4, worst 4 survivors. Now that'd be a good podcast also. Who are the worst 4 survivors ever?
I don't want to be there. I'm sick that day if we're gonna do that.
Okay.
I can't be there. But Mount Rush second, for the purposes of this exercise. That's not a good name, but we'll think about it. I need to ideate.
All right. Well, listeners, tell us. Okay, so here's I think it's okay in no particular order. Okay, I think I want to have. Let's put Suri, who doesn't have. Okay, so here's just off the top of my head. I'm gonna go Suri, Tyson, Kim, Russell. Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Suri, Kim, Tyson, Russell. That's 5 through 8. No particular order. Sorry, Jeremy. You're not on this one either. I apologize, Jeremy.
Is there
Suri not a winner? Russell not a winner? I think Amanda, you can say like,
yeah.
Where's Amanda? But I think I'm okay with Amanda not being there. Russell changed the game. Tyson right there as one of the icons. Kim has like the perfect game in like almost perfect game in Survivor One World. Feisty in Winners at War, and of course Suri.
Does anybody, and this includes Suri, I guess, has to do really. If they do really great in 50, do they get on round?
I think Coach is right there also. I think you can argue for Coach, and I think that's where the season 50 of it all, Coach like really knocks your socks off in 50. I think you could have him in there. I think you could argue for Cochran in there. Jeremy, as mentioned, I think that's like. Really, I think that 1 through 4, and maybe your order may vary, but 5 through 8, I think is like a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think I was unsure on Russell.
Oh, well, Russell never won. Russell changed the game, and if you're going to tell me that Russell never won, but you're going to say, oh, well, Suri is definitely there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that point. Interesting.
Russell's been to the finals more times than Suri.
Yeah. Maybe that's an off-season thing.
Suri's been right there, like, 4 times now?
Yes. Yeah.
And I did count Australian Survivor.
As we should, because it's real. It's canon. That's a good podcast, is we'll do like 7 episodes of the top 4. We'll just do the top 28. You know what I mean? In groups of 4.
The top 4 is kind of boring, other than like okay, what order do you have the Mount Rushmore is maybe the interesting part of that. But 5 through 8 is actually a fascinating conversation.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Let me know in the comments. How about this on YouTube? Tell us in the comments who's your 5 through 8. Who's 5, 6, 7, 8?
Yeah, 6, 7.
6, 7.
That's
gonna be my thing. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Rebrand it. Yeah, so that was many of the questions that we got.
Okay. Good. I love this. This was super fun. You did a great job of talking it through it. Not even when we talk on the phone, I love to have our conversations. And I hope that the listeners love this. And I would love to be able to, here's what I want. Let's do this again in December. Let's do, and maybe it's post Survivor 49. I think that might be a good time slot to do this. But I'd love to do, I like that, as Bill Simmons said, it's the balance. It's the PB&J of the serious, thought-provoking questions, but then also the absurd. Those two things back and forth, 6, 7. That is what makes for an incredible mailbag.
Yeah. Squealy wants to know, would you ever grow a mustache?
I mean, I have a beard. I think that minus the beard with just the mustache. I don't know if it works. My wife does not like it. She says that I look creepy.
Yeah. There are some guys that really, really look good. I am not one of them.
And my father that was his look, was mustache. That was,
really?
Yes, that was, my entire life, mustache. And he shaved it 1 week and it was wait, who are you? What is this? And I just don't know how to do it right, but with just the mustache, I did it after my dad died. I did for a couple of weeks did just mustache, and it did not look good. When my wife did not like it, she allowed it because my dad just passed away. And then after Survivor the Amazon, when I got voted out on day 38, and I had they made us wear red paint and do this bizarro ritual that I think they just made up. I don't think that was a real part of the Amazon culture. And then we stood on the thing and held the thing over our head. But then we had all war paint on. And then I got voted off. And then I went back to the we were on a boat. Ponderosa was a big boat. And then I took a shower, and I think I just I must have just shaved the beard off because it was bothering me. But I left the mustache because that's jury people, you wouldn't know, but people on the jury sometimes they just leave facial hair. But you've seen it, right?
I've seen it. I've seen the show.
Yeah. And Lex is gonna have a mohawk, so the people do weird stuff with body hair. And so I just left the mustache, and then we had a toga party that night, and Mark Burnett was there, and he said, Rob, you look gay like Freddie Mercury.
But he meant gay isn't happy, as the people used to say, in elementary school when people would call you.
I think that maybe that was just Freddie Mercury's look, and I think that the people who wanted to be like Freddie Mercury. I love Freddie Mercury.
I'm a big fan.
I didn't realize that was such a great compliment at the time.
Sure. Do you think if you cut into a mustache now, you still look like Freddie Mercury?
Honestly, I could see you put me in all leather. I think I could pull off a Freddie Mercury look.
Yeah. Well, comment below if you want Rob in all leather and a mustache. We'll do it. I won't be there, but we'll do it.
I mean, look, you don't know that wasn't my look at breakfast on the Traitors.
We don't. Yeah. There were also so many Traitors questions we cannot answer. We'll do this after the Traitors also.
One day, friends. All right. So, Brandon, anything else you want to tell people about?
No, we have merch coming on Friday. Really new, exciting, fun merch that was designed with you in mind. So look out for that on Friday.
Go to robhasawebsite.com/merch to check out the Brandon Donlon collection coming soon, when we'll have a Black Friday sale for all of our patrons. robhasawebsite.com/patron for all of our fun patron stuff, including a podcast that Brandon, if you like this, you're going to love the podcast we did over on Patreon recently, where we went through all of the different times I made reality stars mad with this little microphone of mine. The big mouth and the little microphone. Somehow, when put together, it could be a toxic combination to make reality stars angry. And so I put my foot in my mouth many times and got reality stars mad. And we went through the catalog of so many of those times. And also, this holiday season, don't forget about The Tribe and I Have Spoken, which is available at robhasabook.com. And also, congratulations to fellow author Taryn Armstrong. Behind the Mirror is available everywhere today. Congratulations on Taryn's book release.
Oh, yeah. Happy Pub Day. That's what they're saying online.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye. This is RHAP. We know reality TV.